you, but here in Utah, it is getting so freezing cold outside. I just can't stop thinking about soup. So today I'll be sharing 9 of my family's all-time favorite soups with you. These soups are so hearty and delicious. You're going to love them, and your whole family will love them too. Let's go get to my kitchen and let's get started. To kick us off today, we are making this lasagna soup, and it is so unreal. It is absolutely amazing. It's one of my all-time favorite soups. To a large pot on the stove, add in a tablespoon of olive oil, next a pound of Italian sausage or any type of sausage that you like, then add in a diced yellow onion, break that sausage up. Mine was still a little bit frozen, but it turned out fine. Just cook that sausage through, then remove any excess grease from your pot. Next, you're going to add in your seasonings. This is so flavorsome and delicious. Add in 2 teaspoons of dried parsley, next a half a teaspoon of dried oregano and 1 teaspoon of dried basil. Now you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of some tomato paste, along with a 24-ounce jar of marinara sauce, or you could use like a can of marinara sauce, whatever you'd like. Next, add in 7 cups of either chicken or veggie broth. Now you're going to add in your 9 lasagna noodles, and my favorite trick with these lasagna noodles is you want to break them up super small. So on your spoon, you want to get some of the noodle, you want to get some of the sausage. So just make sure you break your noodles up small because they will expand as they're cooking. But let this simmer on your stove for about 13 minutes or until those noodles are no longer chewy. Also, I am currently running a huge Black Friday sale on my cookbook and my weekly meal planning system. Plus, I am signing every single cookbook order. Whether you buy one or multiple books, they will all be signed with this current deal. I really can't wait for you to check it out. I have all of the details linked below. Next, we are getting started on the cheesy mixture. This mixture is so good. Into a bowl, add in 1 cup of either cottage cheese or ricotta cheese. My family's like a cottage cheese lasagna family, so I'm adding in cottage cheese. Next, add in a half a cup of mozzarella cheese and a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. Give this a really good stir, and then you are going to set it to the side. I also paired our lasagna soup with French bread, and I am going to show you this new French bread that I tried out. I went to Walmart and I found this garlic and herbs French bread. I really wanted to give it a go, so I just sliced it into smaller pieces, and then all I did was spray the top of the bread with a little bit of oil spray, and then I sprinkled it with Parmesan cheese. Since the bread was already seasoned with like garlic and herbs, I went simple on it today, and it turned out super duper good. I broiled it in my oven for about 1 to 2 minutes, and it was quite delicious. But here is what the lasagna soup is looking like now that the noodles are tender. You could stir in the cheesy mixture if you would like right now, but what my family likes to do is we like to serve up this soup in bowls. Then we like to put a little scoop of that cheesy mixture on top, and it is 10 out of 10. It is so good. My little ones had 2 different bowls of this. It was really that good. It is so rich, creamy, and warm and cozy. You need to try this one. You will absolutely love it, and you'll be making it non-stop. Now we are making this taco soup, and I just love how hearty and filling this taco soup is. So to the pot on my stove, I added in a pound of ground beef. I'm going to break my ground beef up and I'm going to cook it through. Once it was cooked through, I just removed any excess grease from my pot. Now I'm going to add in 1 undrained can of black beans, along with an undrained can of corn and an undrained can of petite diced tomatoes. Now add in 1 can of tomato sauce, and then I filled the can of tomato sauce up with water. So now I'm adding in a can of water. Now add in 2 to 3 tablespoons of taco seasoning and give this a stir. I know this is really easy. So let this simmer covered on your stove for about 20 minutes, and then your house is going to be smelling so good. Once the simmering time is up, you could serve your soup up, and I don't know about you, but I think my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts of taco soup, is the toppings on top. So I topped mine with shredded cheese, sour cream, lime, avocado, and tortilla strips, but of course this taco soup is still super good without any of the toppings. Now we're going to make my favorite soup, as one of my little ones calls it. So to this pot on my stove, I added in a tablespoon of olive oil. Once it was hot, I added in my my tablespoon of minced garlic, along with a diced yellow onion and a half a cup of chopped carrots. I'm going to cook this together for about 5 to 7 minutes to get those veggies softer. Now I'm adding in 2 cups of cooked shredded chicken along with 4.5 cups of chicken broth. Next, add in a half a cup of heavy cream and 6 ounces of cubed cream cheese. Give this a stir and let this simmer on your stove covered for about 5 minutes. Now that the cooking time is up, I'm just whisking in the cream cheese so it could be incorporated in with the rest of the ingredients and it could become nice and smooth, not clumpy. Now add in your 1 cup of small pasta. You could use any type of small pasta that you like or have on hand. I also added in 1 cup of fresh spinach. I'm going to whisk this well, and you're going to want to let this simmer covered for about 10 minutes. Stir it occasionally until the pasta is tender. But now that my pasta is to the tenderness that we like it to be, I'm adding in my cheeses. So 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese and 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese. Once the cheese melts down, you could really enjoy your soup. At least for me, sometimes when I have soup, I'm just hungry about an hour later just because it's not super filling. But this is the type of soup that is absolutely perfectly delicious, and it will leave you full for hours just because it really is more of a hearty style soup. We really enjoy this. Now we're making this hearty ham and potato soup. We're going to start out by cutting up our vegetables. Peel and dice 3 large russet potatoes. Slice 2 cups of carrots into smaller pieces, slice 2 ribs of celery into smaller pieces as well, and then dice 1 yellow onion. Set these vegetables to the side. Now over to my large Dutch oven, or you could use a large pot. Add in 1 tablespoon of olive oil and 1 tablespoon of butter. Once the butter has melted down and the oil is hot, add in the celery, carrots, and onion. Saute those vegetables around for about 4 to 5 minutes to start to soften them. After that time is up, add in a tablespoon of minced garlic and stir that garlic around for a minute. Now add in the potatoes that we cut up earlier, along with 2 cups of cooked ham that you kind of cut into bite-sized pieces. I just used some remaining ham from the holidays, or I also like this ham. If you don't have any remaining ham, you could just use this. I like to keep one of these in my freezer. These ham steaks are a very good price and they are full of flavor. They're just super great if you're on a budget as well. But I gave this a really good stir. Now you're going to add in 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour. Stir that flour around until it kind of becomes a golden color. Now add in 2.5 cups of chicken broth. Add it in slowly and stir it while you're adding it in. This is going to help so the flour doesn't become clumpy in this recipe. Now that we have all of the broth in the pot, we're going to add in our 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of pepper. Bring this up to a simmer, and you're going to let this simmer covered for about 10 to 15 minutes, or until your potatoes are fork tender, of course. Depending on how large you cut your potatoes is how long this needs to simmer. But once my simmering time was up, I gave this a stir, and then I tested to see if these potatoes were fork tender with a fork. But now that they are fork tender, I'm just adding in my 3 cups of milk. I'm going to let the milk heat through. You don't want to bring this up to a simmer or a boil with the milk because you don't want to curdle the milk. But after a couple of minutes of just letting this heat through, I served it up. We topped ours with a little bit of shredded sharp cheddar cheese and pepper. This soup is so hearty and delicious. It has a wonderful, rich flavor. It is out of this world good. Now we're getting started on this Italian sausage soup. So over to my cutting board, I'm starting out by slicing 3 large carrots into smaller pieces. I diced a yellow onion and I sliced 2 ribs of celery. Over to this large pot on my stove, I'm adding all of those vegetables right in there. Next, I'm going to be adding in 1 pound of Italian sausage. I'm using the sweet Italian sausage. If you know me, you probably know by now I just love the flavoring of the sweet Italian sausage, but you could use use any type of Italian sausage that you like. Break that sausage up and cook it through. Once your sausage is completely cooked through, you do want to remove any excess grease from your pot. I'm just wiggling a paper towel around in my pot until that grease is mainly absorbed. So after I am through with that, I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of minced garlic. Just stir the garlic around, and the reason why you don't add the garlic in with the rest of the vegetables in the beginning is just because garlic does burn super easily. So you want to add it in and stir it super quick and then move on to the next steps. That's my little advice about garlic. But after that, go ahead and add in your seasonings: a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of pepper, a teaspoon of oregano, and a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Now add in about 8 cups of chicken broth, or you could use veggie broth. Scrape all of those flavorful bits off the bottom of the pot right now, and then you're going to want to let this simmer covered for about 10 minutes. I promise this recipe is so easy to make. Once the simmering time is up, add in 1 cup of dientellini pasta or any type of small pasta that you'd like to add in. Give it a stir and let this simmer covered, stirring it occasionally for about 12 minutes or until the pasta is tender. And in last week's video, I got requests to share my garlic bread recipe with you, so here it is. Place slices of bread on a sheet pan, spray them with oil spray, or brush the bread with a little bit of butter on top, and then sprinkle a little bit of garlic salt and Italian seasoning over that. This is all I do. I put it under the broiler in my oven for about 2 minutes or until it's golden brown, and this is the best easy garlic bread. I have been making it so often recently, but now that my pasta is tender, I am adding in 1.5 cups of fresh chopped spinach along with 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. Let the spinach wilt down, and then you could serve this glamorous soup up. Here's what the garlic bread looks like out of the oven. It's not the type of garlic bread that is just dripping in oil or butter. It is just super good. It's super crispy on top and soft in the middle. You need to try that garlic bread recipe. It's easy to throw together as well. This soup is phenomenal. Also, it does save super well in the fridge and freezer if you want to meal prep it for another date. It is so good. Now we are making this Spanish rice soup. This one is so affordable, but yet so delicious. To my large Dutch oven, I added a tablespoon of olive oil right in there. Once the oil was hot, I added my onions and my peppers, and I am going to give this a stir and let these vegetables cook for about 5 minutes. Now we're going to be adding in our drained and rinsed can of black beans, followed by our drained can of corn. Then you're going to add in the bag of Knorr Spanish rice that we grabbed from the store. After you add that in, go ahead and add in about 1 tablespoon of taco seasoning. And if you don't have taco seasoning on hand, I totally understand that. But if you have other seasonings on hand, like cumin, garlic powder, onion powder, chili powder, and paprika, you could add those seasonings in as a substitute for the taco seasoning. The last thing I added in was 6.5 cups of water. I gave this a stir, and I let this simmer covered on my stove for about 7 to 10 minutes. I did stir this often so the rice didn't stick to the bottom of my pot, but once the rice was tender, I served our soup up. When you go and make this soup, you will not believe that it only costs about $3 and some change to throw together. It is just that good and flavorful. We topped ours with some toppings we had on hand, like tomatoes, cheese, sour cream, guacamole, and lime. But if you don't have any extra toppings on hand, this soup is delicious alone as well. Now we're making this Tuscan chicken and potato stew. On my cutting board, I am going to dice 3 carrots into smaller pieces. Next, I'm going to slice 2 ribs of celery. I'm also going to dice 1 yellow onion and a pound of golden potatoes. Just cut those potatoes into kind of smaller bite-sized pieces. Now over to my slow cooker, I'm going to add in my 2 chicken breasts, or you could use boneless, skinless chicken thighs if you'd like. Now I'm adding in the vegetables that we diced up along with 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. Now add in 2 cups of chicken broth, or you could use vegetable broth, along along with a can of petite diced tomatoes. And then for the seasonings, I added in 2 teaspoons of salt, a teaspoon of pepper, a teaspoon of garlic powder and onion powder. And then I'm going to add in a teaspoon of oregano, Italian seasoning, dried basil, dried rosemary, and then a half a teaspoon of dried thyme. There's a lot of seasonings, but this is oh so flavorful. Give this a stir and let this cook on low for 6 hours. We like our stews to be a little bit on the thicker side, so I'm making a cornstarch slurry to thicken up the stew. So I have about 1/4 cup of water. I added 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to the water and just give it a stir until that cornstarch is dissolved. You don't want the cornstarch to become thick and clumpy in your stew, but now that my chicken's cooked through, I'm removing it to a plate and just shred that chicken up into small pieces. You could also dice your chicken if you prefer diced chicken in your stew, but after that chicken was nice and shredded, I added it back into my slow cooker. Now you're going to want to add in that cornstarch slurry along with a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. That balsamic vinegar just gives it like a little kick. Ooh, delicious. But give this a stir and let this cook on high for about 20 minutes to thicken up this stew. Even if you're not the biggest soup or stew type of person in the world, I really think you should still give this a try. It is so hearty, filling, and delicious. Also, you could add ingredients to this or subtract ingredients. I did serve this alongside of some garlic parmesan toast that I made up super quick. This white chicken lasagna soup is so good. To the pot on my stove, I added in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Once it was hot, I tossed in my 1 pound of cubed chicken breast, and I'll season that chicken with a dash of salt, pepper, and dried basil. I gave this a stir and I let the chicken cook through at this point. While we have our chicken cooking away, I am going to cut up our veggies. So to the cutting board, I diced my 2 large carrots and I diced my onion into smaller pieces. I'll set these veggies to the side and back over to our now cooked chicken. I'm going to remove it to a plate and I'm going to set this plate to the side. Into that same pot that we cooked our chicken in, I tossed a tablespoon of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter in there. Once the butter started to melt down, I added in those veggies that we cut up earlier, and I gave this a stir and I let these veggies cook for about 4 to 5 minutes to start to soften up. Now that they are soft, I added in 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour and I gave this a stir. I let this flour cook in with those veggies for about 2 minutes. After those 2 minutes, I slowly added in my 8 cups of chicken broth. You do want to make sure you add that chicken broth in slowly and whisk it while you add it in, just to ensure that you don't have any clumps in your soup in the end. Go ahead and add our cooked chicken right back in there along with a drained and rinsed can of cannellini beans. Next, you're going to add in the seasonings, 2 teaspoons of dried basil, a teaspoon of dried parsley, half a teaspoon of oregano, and then a teaspoon and a half of salt and a half a teaspoon of pepper. Give this a really good stir. Now it's time to add in our lasagna noodles. So you'll want to add in between 8 to 10 lasagna noodles, and you do want to break them up into smaller bite-sized pieces just like this so your soup is easier to eat. But after you add those in there, you are going to give this a stir and let this simmer on your stove, stirring it frequently for about 22 minutes or until the noodles are tender. But now we're at that point and you're going to add in your 2 cups of half and half and 10 ounces of thawed out frozen spinach. Stir this all together, and then after you are finished stirring this all together, it is cheese time, my favorite part. You'll add in a cup of mozzarella cheese and a cup of Parmesan cheese. Let the cheese melt down, and then it is time to serve. This is seriously the most beautiful, hearty, delicious soup for this time of year. It has so much great flavor, and my husband and myself, we could eat bowls and bowls of this. Also, my little toddler Brinley loves it, so it is a win-win for my family. Now we are making my family's all-time favorite tried and true beef stew recipe. I've been making it like this for years. To a bowl, add in about 1.5 pounds of beef stew meat. Next, add in 2.5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Give it a stir to coat the beef in the flour. This is really going to add a lot to the recipe. You just have to trust me. Now over to a large pot on the stove, add in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Have your heat on medium-high heat right now. Next, add in the beef stew meat, and you are just going to let that meat sear. You're going to want to let it sear on each side for a couple of minutes. You really want to get a great crust on the outside. This is going to give it much added flavor. You're going to be loving it in the end. After your beef stew meat has a nice sear on the outside, you're going to add in about 3 cups of water. After that, add in 1 packet of beef stew seasoning mix. You could use any brand or any type you like. This beef stew is so simple, no complicated crazy ingredients. Also, this recipe is on page 128 in my cookbook, and it's in the one pot section. My cookbook has over 100 easy, affordable, realistic recipes. Also 8 different sections ranging from like breakfast, slow cooker recipes, one pot meals, super quick dinners, desserts. I seriously have it all in this book. Plus the Black Friday deal won't last much longer, and remember, all of the books are signed. I have everything linked below for you. Next, I'm going to give this a good stir to scrape all of those flavorful bits off the bottom of the pot. Then you're going to let this simmer covered for 45 minutes. This is going to help the meat be super buttery, soft, and tender in the end. So just put a lid on top and let it simmer and cook. After the cooking time is up, you are going to add in 2 diced russet potatoes, next 2 sliced ribs of celery, 1 diced yellow onion, and 2 sliced carrots. Give this a stir and let it simmer for about 30 more minutes. I do want to let you know you could add in green beans, you could add in peas, you could really add in any veggies that your family enjoys. These are veggies that I had on hand and that are so good. After 30 minutes of simmering, you can serve this delicious stew up. Here's my bowl of stew. We were all out of normal spoons on this night. I don't know if that happens to anybody else, so we kind of just used baby spoons, but this is absolutely phenomenal. I've been making this for years. My husband requests this stew every fall and winter. It is just so warm and cozy, and it is just so delicious. It makes for the best dinner. I would really love to have you here, so make sure you're subscribed down below the video so you don't miss the next video like this, and I'll see you there. Bye for now.